I had it all: anxiety, depression, PTSD, rage, and nothing could stop it.
Right.
I tried almost everything I could think of.
Yeah.
I went to church, outpatient therapy, and then other brain doctors, but no one could help me. I can control my rage. I'm not so quick to just be judgmental. I let things go now.
Yeah.
I really feel like I broke through a cage and I'm like walking among a prairie and just, I can breathe now.
All right. Well, Veronica, thank you so much for coming.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to have someone that's been through the program and coming and sharing your story. I know you don't hold back on things. You like to tell your story and see, which is great because it can help so many people. I know when I first met you on the phone, calling in for a consult, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was admittedly 3 minutes late to that call. And and you didn't hold back then, did you?
No.
you were already at the end of your limit as far as rage, upset, anger, all these things, which is kind of preeminent throughout your life, right, at that point. So why don't you tell us kind of how that came to be? Because I know there was a little bit of a TBI that really caused a lot of that.
Yeah. 0 to 100 in the rage, calculation, whatever, it's pretty quick. Yeah. And my whole life has been like that. It started with childhood trauma that was never really addressed or fixed. And then what set it off was the car accident I had 7 years ago. So I hit my head and had a brain bleed. And ever since then, I just wasn't the same. It was like quick to anger. I tried almost everything I could think of. And I went to church, outpatient therapy, and then other brain doctors, but no one could help me. And I used to say, we can get to the stinking moon,
right,
but we can't fix my brain with my memory, with how I'm responding to things. And they're like, no, the brain's very complicated. We kind of can't. And I was so hopeless.
And those are neurologists and stuff too, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then one day, a woman that works here at the school or had work, she told me, she's like, okay, enough's enough. You need to do this brain treatment program, and it's going to help you because it helped her son. She's like, it helps soldiers that come back with PTSD. So I had it all: the anxiety, depression, PTSD, rage, and nothing could stop it.
Right, right. I was just looking back at my my notes last night and before this, and what really hit me is I saw one note on our very first consult where you said, "This is the last thing I'm trying."
Yep.
This is my last effort, I think was actually your words. My last effort I'm doing before I fall apart.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you've tried so many things and no fix at all. So you came in and we did a brain map on you.
Yep.
And this right on the top here was your first brain map when we came in. And you had, 2.5 standard deviations high, but really 2 standard deviations high pretty much across your entire brain in these slow type waves. These slow waves, I always tell people, these are kind of like, having your emergency brake on as you're trying to drive your car.
Yeah.
So what do people do if you have to go? You push a lot of gas, right? And you push through that. And this is the same type of thing. That's why it causes so much anxiety. This right here is like hiking with a 30-pound backpack on everywhere. And you wonder why you're exhausted everywhere and putting so much effort into everything. And everybody else around you seems to be having a good time and having fun doing things. And you're trying with everything. And when you try that much and you have that much push through, you run out of reserve, right?
Yep.
And when you're out of reserve, you snap. You get frustrated easy. You get to agitation easy. You get aggressive very easy. And if you were to come in and describe your symptoms to me, and even when you did on that first consultation, I would have thought you were going to be on the fight or flight, right? Everything in the fight or flight that's going to cause this and everything. And that's why it's so important to brain map, because you had something else going on. You had these waves actually that were high that were causing these symptoms. And I always say, even out of 11,000 brain maps that I've done, if I were to guess based on symptoms, I'd be right 50% of the time, which is like flipping a coin, right? And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of psychology, psychiatry, and everything, is you're going without imagery. There's not one medical specialty that starts without taking an image of what they're going to be looking at and understanding it. So from this, we're able to really kind of get to the source of, and definite TBIs. I mean, we can see that right here. We have other maps that really show the traumatic brain injury. We can see that very clear. But then we can address this activity.
Right.
And why don't you talk a little bit about kind of your experience with the training sessions, kind of what you experienced in those, how you would describe those, just kind of sitting in the chair and playing those video game type biofeedback response things.
Yeah, I loved them. I would get so tired. Like first session up until I think like 15, I would literally catch myself snoozing off, and my brain was so worked. I used to tell my boss, I'm like, I can't come in on days that I do brain therapy because I'm way too exhausted. Like my brain is trying to heal right now.
Right.
And so I had to work my whole schedule and around coming.
Yeah.
It was fun. I went through all of the different options as far as which games to play, and then I found the one that I like, and every time that Colleen comes in, she's like, I don't even need to ask what you want to play, because it's like I just found what works for me and I enjoy. And 30 minutes usually goes by really quickly.
Yeah. So 30 minutes of sitting back in a comfortable chair, hooked up with your brain hooked up, controlling a video game, right? And you're just sitting there watching it, which is so much better than managing those symptoms with either certain forms of talk therapy and stuff, which again, I love therapy and I send people to therapists all the time, but when there's this physiology causing this, you can't talk your way out of it, right? And it only frustrates you trying to.
Right. And doing a year and a half of intensive outpatient therapy where you talk 10 hours a week, nothing, there's nothing else I could say, and what they could say to me, like, okay, count back from 10, think about your 5 senses, and it just, nothing helped.
Right. And again, if this was normal and it was just a behavioral thing, those things would help.
Right.
Those things help people all day long, and they're great. But when there's physiology, you can't do it. That's like saying, I have a broken arm, but I'm just going to will through lifting something, right? It causes so much pain that we stop, and so for yours, that was, like that. So, the sessions were easy. I mean, you're just sitting in a chair, comfortable chair, and watching a game on it. How was your experience, with our staff and stuff as well?
Well, they're now my best friends. I have such a good time coming in. Colleen makes me feel so welcomed, and if I have to cancel an appointment, she's like, it's no big deal. She puts no stress on it, which a lot of places are like, oh wow, you have to cancel, that's going to throw off our schedule, and we're going to charge you for a cancellation fee. She was so accommodating, especially with the growing human in me. I'm like, I got to go to the restroom constantly, and I can't lean all the way back now. So there's a lot of accommodations that she was able to do. And then now we have a friendship, and it all was built on trusting in this whole program.
Right. That's awesome. That's so great. So we did the 20 sessions. This is your brain now, which is 100% all in the normal. Everything looks great. I mean, from 80% outside the normal to all within the normal there. Why don't you kind of talk a little bit about that kind of anger, that rage, that frustration that you had, that 0 to 100. What's that like now?
It's great, because I would fly off the handle for something that's so ridiculous at my husband, and now when I'm upset, I'm like, dude, that's gonna upset me. And he's like, who are you? Yeah, before I just have a full-blown just lash at him, say awful things, and just this monster would come out of me. A lot of it was being triggered constantly, and I feel a lot of this took away whatever was that triggering fear-driven response that I was having. So he's a big guy. He's like almost 6'2", 240 pounds on a light day. And so when he walks through the house, he's heavy-footed. That's triggering PTSD for me. And I think he's going to come in and attack me. And he's like, comes in with roses or like dinner made or something. Yeah. And I'm like sitting there shaking and angry because now I'm upset and scared. I got to like use my anger to hide that. And I would just lose it on him, like, why the beep are you walking like that? And just berate him. And he's like, what did I do wrong?
Right.
And that was the hardest part in our whole marriage, was constantly being like, for him, what did I do wrong to deserve this? He's a really good guy, and I treated him awfully. And so this was the breaking point in our marriage, where it's like, if I told him, I go, if I don't heal from this, I don't want you to be with me anymore.
Right.
I needed him to like find peace and happiness.
Yeah.
It was miserable for him, I know.
Right. Yeah. And no, you loved him so much that you didn't want him to have to experience you.
Yeah.
And because you were hurting him, right?
Yeah.
I remember when we first started talking, or after a few sessions in and stuff, we were talking about how, you do overreact to things very quickly with him, and Casey's always, the calm one. And I remember you telling me at the end how now you're so calm that Casey seems like the one that reacts too much now at times.
Yeah, and then he's doing his brain therapy, and
exactly.
So he's almost done with that.
But he looked really good compared to where you were before. But then when you got all the way down here, it's like, wait a minute now. I have so many parents tell me that no, this is the kid that has the ADHD. We need to train them, and then we train them down. Well, now my other kid looks bad, because this kid's pretty calm.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, that's great.
And now we're gonna, be parents in 8 weeks, and
8 weeks.
now when our kid does something to upset us, we're like, dude, come on.
Exactly. And I'll tell you that I love the timing around this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to have this, to have your brain where, again, I always explain it to people as this is the fight or flight. This was where every single person will react the same way you did. But most of us wake up here, right? And we've got all this, our spouse walking down the hall usually goes like this to us, right? But you were right here. You were waking up. Your electrical activity of all this activity was right underneath the breaking spot. So just these little things kept triggering that, and how much more does a newborn baby, have trigger those things, that crying. I have so many moms coming in that I feel like I'm just reacting to my kids so much, and it bothers them. They don't want to do that. The same way you were talking about with Casey, right? You don't want to do that. You have this little kid, but sometimes you can't even help it. You just react because you're at the end of your rope. You can't go anymore. And with you've got so much reserve now going into raising this newborn child that of course everybody gets frustrated with their kids and everything. But at the same time, you have so much reserve to be able to handle that, and that's exciting. It's not only change your life, change your husband's life, but this is setting your kid up to have an amazing life. Imagine if you were triggered on that child every time, right? And then they start feeling anxiety and being raised more in that type of thing. So it's a generational change, which is huge.
Yeah, I would be like. Just raising him the same way that I was raised, with like constant anxiety and depression and being scared of your parents.
Wow.
2020 was my year to heal in every aspect, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. I got my back operated on, and that cured my back pain. It was awesome. An awful pain. And then spiritually, I got closer with God and fought off all those demons. Yeah. And then, mentally, here we go. Absolutely. I can control my rage. I'm not so quick to just be judgmental. I let things go now. Yeah. And I'm more understanding, when I have a difference of opinions with people, especially nowadays with just like the culture of the world.
Everybody has a difference of opinion nowadays. So.
Before I would be like, you're so wrong, and insult, and now I'm just like, there's no fixing you, so it is what it is. You believe that. Yeah.
Exactly. And to each their own, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. So you're just saying we need to brain train the rest of the country, and then we can all get along,
Absolutely.
Right? Perfect. That's perfect. Well, I am so excited to, that you came today and share your story with everybody, because everybody needs to know these things. Everybody needs to know that there's help. And you got told about it by Linda, who used to be the school nurse here, and saw it, with concussion after concussion after concussion with the kids here at Oaks Christian School, but then saw it with her own kids too, right? And had personal experience, and luckily she reached out to you and shared that, hey, you've got to do this. And it's so important, because when you address the physiology, the rest takes care of itself. Sometimes people need a little bit of therapy, a little bit of this, absolutely, for sure. But you got to address the physiology first. So.
Yeah, I try to scream this information from the rooftops. Honestly, I try to tell everybody I can about brain performance, because I'm like, do you want to live your life feeling trapped and angry and scared and can't sleep and you're anxious 24/7, or do you want to live your life set free?
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel like. I really feel like I broke through a cage and I'm like walking among a prairie and just I can breathe now.
Wow. What a great story. I love it. Thank you so much for coming and sharing your story.
Thank you.